Hello, board gamers of the world. Welcome again to the Curious Box. One more Friday, one more video. I'm very excited to present you this video. Today's video was an interview with Thomas Pike, who designed and published Escape the Dark Castle. It's a very long and insightful interview that I hope you really enjoy. So stay tuned. Hi Tom, thank you. Thanks a lot for being with us today. I know you are really busy these days, and it's not easy for you to find time.
No, it's okay. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very busy with the new project, but there's always time to stop and have a coffee and a chat. So let's do it.
We'll be talking about this new project soon. But first, I want to know. Let's start from your game, Escape the Dark Castle. As you know, I'm always mistaking the name, but today I'm getting it wrong. I'm getting it right. How did this phenomenon, we can call it like this, I think. How did this phenomenon start?
Well, I think this project was something that was inside the kind of heart and soul of me and my co-designers since we were kids. This is exactly the kind of game that we imagined we were playing when we were kids. I don't know if we really played anything like this or if we just pieced it together from strange memories, but when we reached a certain age, we decided we wanted to make our own game, and this is what poured out of us. This is what we were most naturally inclined to make, something which was equal parts game and experience. It was partly a nostalgic thing, but it had a new kind of a new style for the current market. And yeah, it just started when we really sat down as a group of friends and decided what game we wanted to make for us.
As a kid, did you play a lot of games? Or it wasn't a habit?
I did. I played a lot of games. I've always played a lot of games. I played a lot of computer games, as well as some tabletop games. I mean, when I was a kid, I hadn't discovered this amazing hobby that we now have today. I mean, it didn't exist in the same way, but it did exist, and I still wasn't quite part of it until maybe age 13 or 14, when I came in through Warhammer and some of that kind of stuff. And from there, I was completely hooked. But yeah, all my life I've been playing computer games, board games. I can remember when I was a kid, maybe 8 or 10, designing my first game with playing cards and Matchbox cars and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been something that's been in my big part of my life.
How did you decide to become, how and when did you decide to become a publisher of board games and a creator of board games?
Well, I had, I think it took, like with a lot of people, it had been kind of coming up for a few years, the desire to do something different with my life. So, and I was on the side. I was already a writer, doing some creative stuff, and I really enjoyed it, and I really felt like that was the direction I wanted my life to go. So I quit my office job of 10 years and became a writer. And I lived for 2 years as a writer, writing game content and game reviews and stuff like that. And during that time, and in fact, a little bit before that time, I had been talking to my two friends, co-designers of Escape the Dark Castle, Alex Crispin and James Shelton, about the idea that we should all make a game. Because we had loved games all our lives, and it was a great creative outlet, and I knew the industry a little bit. So we thought about the kind of game we wanted to make, and after lots of discussions, we had this idea, this basic idea for what would eventually become Escape the Dark Castle. And we had been working on that design just privately as a group of friends, just to entertain ourselves for fun, for a few years, for about 3 years, before I finally decided that we had done enough work and we should stop and try to publish it. Because every time we would meet to develop it more, we would kind of go around in a circle and come back to this game. You know, we would change it and make it more complicated, but it wasn't so good, so we come back. And we realized, I think all of us, that this was the one, this was the version or the build that we should publish. So, and I knew that we needed to set up a company to do this, because if we sold it to another publisher, maybe they would change it, and we couldn't have this. We had to do it our way. So that is the moment, I think, when I said, okay, I'm going to try and do this. I believe in the game, and I put all my, which wasn't very much, but I put all my savings and all my time into launching a publisher and launching this game. And that was in 2016 that I finally gave it the push.
When do you reach that moment when you know that it's the moment? I mean, the game is ready.
I think it's difficult.
And how do you know it? How do you know it's the moment?
It's a difficult question. All I can tell you is about my experience with this. This is my first game. I'll tell you about this one. So what happened was, we would meet and develop it. Every few months we would have a weekend and we would develop the game. And it was like I was saying, we would try, okay, we would say we need to add this new element to the game, and we would add it and we would build it and we would test it and we would decide it was better before. So we forget this idea and then we try a new idea, we build it, test it, and no, it's still better before. So it was when we kept adding and it wasn't getting any better that we knew this is it. There's a good test you can do with a game, or with anything you create, which is take away a piece, and does it matter? Is the game still good, or is it better with that piece or not? And we found a place with this game just through trying everything. There, we made lots of different versions, 10 or more different types of way this game could be. And every time we did this test, this core build that we eventually published was the one. And I think that's how we knew we basically exhausted all possibilities to improve it.
After these 10 versions, and after you reach finally the final result, I know now that you didn't publish enough. What I mean is, you didn't have enough, so you had to make some expansions, right? 3 or 4. Tell me about them.
Well, that's an interesting point, because in the core game, in the base set, which is this thing here that you get, one of the key points for us for designing this game was that you could only buy this. And if you only buy this, you can play this. There's no limit. It's completely replayable. If all you ever buy is that game, that box, you'll be happy. You will always be able to take this game off the shelf, set it up in 2 minutes, and have a quick fantasy quest where you never know what will happen. So that's kind of as infinite as we could make it. But people always want more, and there's always new interesting things we can add. So the adventure packs, like this is our first one that we produced, Cult of the Death Knight. This introduces a kind of story-themed pack around this character and his retinue, or his cult of nasty guys. And this can be played on its own, using some components from the game, or mixed together. So it just adds more variety and more interesting things to the game. And with each adventure pack, we also add a new mechanic. So the game gets slightly more complicated with each pack, but still not complicated. It's still a very simple, purposefully simple game that anyone can play, and it's more about the experience than the gameplay rules. That's just to facilitate this nice experience. So each pack adds new, interesting stuff, but they're optional. You don't have to buy them in order or buy them at all. The main game is enough, but if you want this extra stuff, there's some brilliant things in there that you'll definitely enjoy.
Something that keeps me thinking. Replayability was something you were really worrying about in the beginning? Because I see it's a huge problem with many games.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And that was what I was saying about we built so many versions of the game. We had a version of the game, or we looked into these ideas where it wasn't replayable. Like there's lots of other games out there where you have a fixed story deck, and once you've done it, you've done it. It's called, one and done. Okay. We could have put, for example, 10 one and done adventures in this box, but still we felt once you've done them, it's the end of your experience of this game. So we didn't want to go down that route, and we chose to go down the route of, in theory, endless replayability from this box. It was really important because we didn't want a model where you have to buy new booster packs or you have to buy new expansions to keep the game interesting. We wanted people who perhaps don't have very much money or don't want to have a large collection could just buy one product and always have access to a different experience of this type every time. And that's what we've got here with the main game. But yeah, so replayability was hugely important to us for that reason. We wanted it to be low price, replayable game. That gives you this excellent old school fantasy atmosphere. And so we went with a randomized castle. So every time you play, the castle is made up of a different combination of chapter cards, and you will never know which ones are in your game or in what order. And the order that they come out in the game can really change how it plays and how you feel about it and how you react to it as a group of prisoners.
As a gamer, do you play a lot the same game? I mean, you find this game that you like and you play it like 50 times or 100 times. Because I met a lot of gamers who play like 400 times the same game.
Yeah, I don't do that personally. I mean, lately I don't really play anything because I spend all of my time developing our games. But I do, of course, play other things. And I actually like to try and always play something new, really. If I have an opportunity to try a new game, even if I don't think it's going to interest me, I usually try to play because you learn something about the design, about the experience, and it all goes into your mind about what kind of games you personally will create at a later date. So yeah, looking at the games, I can see in your office behind you there's some interesting things I'd like to try. So yeah, I don't tend to play the same game over and over. I would generally try new games, but that's because I'm a designer and I'm hungry for new ideas and to see what's possible.
What was the last game that really got you?
Good question. That is a difficult question because it has been a long time. I have basically been buried for the last 3 years in this project, so we're going back a little while.
Okay.
The last game that really got me.
Or one
I'm not sure.
really got you.
I'm not
It
sure.
doesn't have to be the
I'm
last.
really sorry. I find that difficult to answer. Because part of the reason we made this game is we're finding it difficult to find games that really got us. I mean, the kind of games that really got me were the social deduction games like The Resistance and Spyfall and things like that. I enjoyed how minimal they were and how most of the game is really in the minds of the players. And it's, they're these kind of games, the components are so minimal you could pretty much create it at home. Well, I don't advise that. It's more about who you're with, the group of people, and the kind of intellectual battles that you're having with each other. When I discovered that genre of games, which is a while ago now, but I do remember thinking, wow, this is really special that we can create these gaming situations with so few components. And I think that's probably fed into one of the reasons our game is so minimal and we like to think elegant, is because of that experience of what you can do a lot with a little.
It's a very interesting point because you are actually focusing more on the people than on the game.
Yeah, I think honestly, part of my philosophy is that this is the entertainment business, and the idea is to give players and your consumers, your customers, an experience. They want to have fun, they want to escape, they want to feel something. That's what all of these art forms, whether it's films or books or games, are about. For us, I mean, for me, a puzzle to solve it's interesting, but it's not, you know, that's not what we're offering. We're offering more of an atmospheric, immersive experience that you can kind of all enjoy. But I think there's this point that complexity is not impressive in itself. You can do something that's more impressive for me with something simple, but the result is more impressive. It's almost easier to just make a really complicated game with lots of different moving parts. That doesn't mean it's better or more impressive achievement, or that it's a better experience even for the players. I've played lots of really complicated games that the payoff just wasn't there. It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth learning all these rules and mechanics because the experience in the end wasn't that great. So I'm more interested in kind of refining it down, distilling it and condensing it so that for the minimal amount of effort from the players, they can have this great experience. That's the kind of objective for me.
I see also that it's like you focus every time you play the Resistance or Spyfall or games of social deduction, but not only those, including your game, you create a different story every time you play it.
Yes.
Right? Is this your writer side talking here, speaking?
Yeah, it is. It is. And this was one of the challenges of the game is how can you have a narrative created by a random set of cards? That was the challenge that we had. We knew we wanted it to be about storytelling, but it couldn't have a fixed structure. That was the challenge for the game. And we made it so that it has a beginning and an end, so that you have that structure, and the middle part is the part that's random. And the way it works is because the way I wrote each of the passages on the card, they can follow on from each other in any order because they're all set up nicely by the beginning card. And because the players read them aloud, they are themselves starting to weave this story about what has happened to them or what happens to them along the way. And by the end of it, they have actually, only in half an hour of gameplay, they have a lot of incidents to look back on and think, wow, that guy came and got us, and then we fell in that hole, and then we had to go up that thing. They've got this instant kind of memory of this amazing adventure that they've had in a very short time. And whether or not they escaped doesn't matter. It's more the experience they had along the way and how they coped with it as a team. So that's the story. It's how you dealt with what happened to you. Because in this game, you don't play heroes. You play everyday medieval prisoners who are not going to be very good at escaping from this castle. The odds are not in their favor. They're going to struggle. So it's just really how well they deal with it. They don't have a map. It's not like these games where you can plan exactly what's around the next corner. You can see there's a monster, or maybe we go the other way. You don't know your way around the castle. You were brought in with a bag over your head and locked in a cell. You don't know where the exit is. So you were just doing your best room by room to escape, and that felt more realistic for what these characters would be going through, and that puts the players immediately in quite a tense position, and that elevates the story for everybody.
Would you be unhappy if someone would escape the dark castle on the same time, the first time they were playing?
I would be a little bit unhappy, yes. But it does happen. It can happen. But of course, if you lose, and if you just lose, you have more desire to play again. But even if you win the first time, it's very unlikely that you will win easily. It was probably quite close, and so that also gives you, a nice feeling that you want to play again. But honestly, we didn't design this game. It's funny how people are using the game, because this is something that's beautiful about being a game designer and a publisher, is you never know how your players will use the product. You can imagine everything. They always find something new. When we designed this game, the idea was you take it off the shelf, play it once or twice, and then you put it back on the shelf for 3 months or 6 months. And then next time you have the desire for a fantasy quest, it's ready, you do it again, and then you put it back. But people are playing it 10 times in a row every day, and it wasn't really designed to be played that intensely and that often. But they do it so that, even if they win, they want to play again.
I guess,
So
I guess once the product once the product is out, it's out of your hands. Also, it
exactly,
belongs to the
exactly,
people.
and it's yeah, and it's wonderful to see how they all use it. You know, it's great, and they do cool things that we didn't even think of. It's amazing, but yeah. So if somebody wins on their first game, for us that's great because they will put it away, remember that they won, and then they'll try again maybe in 2 months' time when their friends come over, they try again, see what happens this time with different characters, different castle. That's why it needs to be random. If they won on the first go and it was a scripted adventure, they may never play again. But because it's going to be different this time, that's the incentive to play again.
Well, I strongly believe, personally, I strongly believe why one of the reasons why this game is being so well succeed. It concerns the art of the game. Tell me a bit about the inspiration that led you to this kind of art. Tell me more about it.
Yeah. So the artist is a man called Alex Crispin, and he is also one of the co-designers of the game. And the artwork is fantastic, obviously, and a huge part of why the game is successful. And it's also a huge part of why the game exists. Is because when we were talking about the kind of game we wanted to make, we obviously have visions of what it could look like and what it could be, and this burning vision that we had, and that Alex initially had, in fact, was of this style of artwork that we so loved when we were kids, that was in the fighting fantasy game books, in the early Games Workshop products, and in old D&D, and these lovely old things that we used to enjoy. And it was this black and white pen and ink drawings that at the time were done mainly to save money for the publishers because it was a bit cheaper. That's on the whole the reason, because they would have color covers, but you couldn't do that throughout at that time necessarily unless you had a huge budget. Anyway, in doing this black and white artwork style, and there were some fantastic artists doing it then too, they created this amazing atmosphere, and that's something that we really all experienced and latched onto when we were coming up through our lives in gaming, is the amazing atmosphere that can create. It leaves room for the imagination. It's a little bit wobbly, it's a little bit strange, and sometimes it's a bit sick, and it makes you feel something really strange, especially when you're young and you're looking at these images, and it's great. So that we just knew that wasn't on the market anymore, and it's no less valid. Just because it isn't the done thing these days and it's all digital and colorful and whatever, that's still a really valid art form that has a huge impact on the emotions for anyone who experiences it. So we wanted to bring that back. And that initial idea formed the basis of what this game would look and feel like. And I'm really proud that we retained that vision all the way through. The game we have is exactly what we envisaged in those first moments.
Would you like it to be adapted to a movie? If there was a chance.
Of course, I mean, who would say no? It sounds good, but I would want us to be in control of it, just like the game. If, for example, if you had said, would you like your game idea to be adapted to a board game by another publisher? It's like, no, I wouldn't, because I don't think any publisher would do it this way. Only we would do it this way. So any other kind of media for the game, even a digital computer, a computer game or a film or anything like that, we would be so careful that it was done the right way. And I think it would be easy to say, yeah, we'll do a film, and it would be awful, So we would have to make really sure that we could keep our sense of style and tone and our production values.
Okay. I know besides all these expansions, you are preparing a whole dark universe, right?
Yeah. So that's true. And it's not something we've officially announced, but perhaps it's obvious. But so we have the first game here, as you've seen, and it is Escape the Dark Castle. This is the first game in the Escape the Dark series. So this is Escape the Dark Castle, but you could have Escape the Dark something else. And because we have this game system, this story system, it's really the beginning of a range. So we could go to different locations, different genres. There's really so much we could do with this basis. And now that we have a system that people know how to play, they like it. It's very inclusive. People of all ages and game experience can play. That gives us huge scope to go to interesting places. And we obviously have lots of ideas of what we'd like to do that are our own original ideas, but there is also a very interesting opportunity with licensing to go and do something in a universe that already has a huge fan base, and they can have adventures using our system in that world. So we can't announce anything yet, but we are having some interesting conversations about what's coming next.
How many years are you prepared to be in the darkness?
Oh, a long time. A long time. We're very happy here. We can keep this going indefinitely.
Are you never coming to light?
Well, that I say that as a designer and as a creative team, there is something appealing about a new game now. When you've spent 4 years working only on this, you have a natural desire to change direction, and we are also doing that. We have a game which has been in development for about 3 years also, since this one, which is nearly ready to go to market, and that is completely different direction, completely different set of values, and it's refreshing for us to work on that one. So we are doing that, but we are also always going to support Castle and Escape the Dark as a series, and that's going to grow on this side, and we can develop something else on this side.
Are you prepared to talk about these other projects, to tell us a little bit more, maybe?
No, not yet. So one of the things I choose to do with this company is I will never reveal anything or say anything until I know for sure it will happen. And I think some people release things in this industry when it even might not happen, or it might not happen for 2 or 3 years, etc. So it's not exciting to tell you something that may not happen. I'll tell you when, and if you hear it from us, you can be excited because you know it will happen. But until then, we keep it secret.
Okay. Well, right now there's been, the board game, the tabletop world is like on a moment of explosion. There's a lot of games coming, and a lot of things happening at the same time. I think nobody is really sure which way it's gonna get in the near future. But one thing we can say is the one thing we can talk about is the power of the reviewers. I know Escape Dark Castle has been reviewed by a load of people, and as a next tabletop games reviewer, how do you deal with critics?
The answer is you don't deal with critics. It's not my job as the game designer. It's none of my business, really. Somebody gives us a great review. If somebody gives us a terrible review, my reaction is the same. I don't need to react in any way. It's okay. The thing you have to understand is there are people who love something and there are people who hate that same thing. Whatever it is in life, if you choose something, tell me something that you love. You say, "Oh, I love Ferrari cars." Some people hate them. Yeah, of course. Can't stand them. Worst thing ever. Some people love it. So you can never please everyone as a designer. What we do is we look on balance. On average, on balance, how are the reviews doing? What are the players saying? What's the feeling? And we're fortunate that it is very positive for our game, and we're very happy with that. We have no reaction to negative criticism. That's okay. Some people don't like it. You know, it's not for everyone. You can't please everyone. We're just happy that we please our players, you know, on the whole, because we have a huge, amazing community now who, that's one of the things I'm most proud about, in fact, more than what the game raised on Kickstarter or the number of sales, is the kind of warm community, if I can say that we've created around this game, because it's a cooperative game and it's a nice experience. So we have this amazing community that I'm very proud of.
This community, do you think it was one of the reasons why the game was so well succeed on Kickstarter?
Yes, I do, especially the second Kickstarter. So we did our first Kickstarter, which was successful, but we were completely unknown. And through doing that, we created this community. And so then our second Kickstarter, it's, I think, four times the size, something like that, 3 or 4 times the size. So that community has grown and developed and been cultivated by us into something that's just been amazing and fantastic. And this latest campaign is a great example of everyone spreading the word and coming together and more people enjoying the game. And the community, you know, there are things that you won't see, which is that we get lovely emails and notes from people saying they play the game with their kids instead of a bedtime story, or there's a psychotherapist who uses it in his therapy sessions, or there's an English teacher who uses it for creative writing. And it's just unbelievable what happens to your game once you see it. If people love it and enjoy it, it gets an amazing use that is really just makes it all the more worthwhile.
Do you believe one of the reasons why this industry has been growing and growing and growing lately, it's because people are finding new ways of using board games, not only to play but to apply them? I mean, right now I think games they can be used in so many different activities. Do you think this is one of the reasons why this industry has been growing so much?
I do. I actually, in my days as a games writer, I wrote a column about this exact point in Tabletop Gaming magazine, and it was about the fact that, and I think I wrote it when we started to get legacy games. Okay, legacy games changed the way people viewed board games. We went from this single play, always the same, even with some variety situation, to a game which was episodic, like a TV series. Mm-hmm. Okay, as I'm sure all the viewers know, you know. So this happened, and that changed the way people saw games and played games and consumed games. And you could have season 1, season 2, season 3. Pandemic Legacy is a good example of this. Hugely popular, great game. That it really is a good example of how we are just, you can use the classic thing, we are just at the tip of the iceberg about what we can achieve with games, about how far we can take this medium, and how it can address the issues of the day, or you know, we can give us philosophical questions about morality and decisions that we make. It's a valid art form and entertainment form that has so much potential, just like films and art and books have, to examine the human condition and the things that we do and why and how we interact with each other. And there is so much potential there that we have not yet explored in games that I know we can and will get to in time. So that, I think, is why this is not the end, or this is not the peak, but we are just really getting to the interesting stuff about what we can do. You look at games like This War of Mine and some of these other things where they really start to get into more serious stuff. And it doesn't all have to be serious, of course, there's a lot of fun, but that's what's so interesting, is that you can go in any direction. It's almost more than some of these other mediums. The board game thing, people gathered around a table in person, it gives you so many levels of interaction and components that you can do that, yeah, it's fascinating.
Do you think at some point the board games, they will merge with the virtual reality, with the digital world?
With the digital world, yeah, I think it's already started. It's already started to happen. You've got a few games which have integrated apps as part of their gameplay that are not, they're not optional. You have to use them, so you have that element. You've already got now this year, quite a few more games are trying this kind of AR situation where you've got games like Light Seekers and Age of Sigmar Champions, which you use your phone camera to scan the card and you see some animation and it goes to your digital collection. So there's definitely some crossover there. We actually funded an app as part of our latest campaign, so Escape the Dark Castle will be getting a digital companion app. This is definitely happening. It's actually quite mild at the moment, and there's not, it's not been really cracked what the best way to use that technology is, because there's this interesting situation where if the app isn't really integral to the game, then why have it? Just forget it. And if the app is taking over too much of the game, then why not just make an app? So there's this sort of, the theory is you need to find this middle ground where it's important and integral without being dominating. And there's a few games I think that do this quite well. You've got Mansions of Madness that does that, and XCOM. In fact, Fantasy Flight has been one of the leaders in that area, and they do a lot of good stuff that we can all learn from. But that is a really interesting area, and that's actually something we are looking at for the future for us too.
We have been recently talking with Alex McClay. He designed this amazing game called Sea of Nadia, and he brings this aspect up, which is like he's using an app to make the rules easier. So you open your rule book, you bring the app, you connect it to the book, and the rule is explained on video. Yeah. Which is like solving a huge problem on board games for a lot of people, which is reading rules. Do you think this can be a way of exploring this?
I do. It's good. So, Sea of Nadia, I know, and there's also there's a company who are making a product called Dized, which is exactly this. It's like a subscription service where you just put your iPad on the table, and any rule, any game. The idea is any game that's on Dized, you can just press play, and it will teach you the rules by video from the beginning. It's not a YouTube guy doing the review. It's a purpose-built program to teach you even the most complicated game from the very beginning how to play. So lots of publishers are already signing up to this service to make it available to players. Something you should look into, viewers, if you haven't. Have a look at that. It's quite interesting. They do it with nice music and production values, and it seems interesting. But I actually like what Sea of Nadia does there. If you can turn to a specific page and immediately access the video for that rule, that's actually quite cool as well. So yeah, I think this is good. But I also think, if you design your game in a certain way and you design your rules in a certain way, it's something people can learn in 5 minutes. And obviously that is what we did with Escape the Dark Castle. Nobody has a problem with the rules of this game. They don't need a video. We designed it to be as accessible as possible in terms of rules. And that's one of the reasons why we didn't go down the scripted story route or lots of complicated setup. You shuffle the cards and play. So there's two sides to that. You can make your rules simple, and that solves the problem. And with simple rules, as I said earlier, it doesn't mean the game isn't deep and complicated. You can create something interesting from something simple, and for me, that's the hardest task and the biggest challenge. But if you have a game that's with hundreds of rules and complicated interactions and situations, yeah, something like a video would definitely help people. People like to sit back and watch a video, don't they? They don't want to read, especially. We've all been there when I was always the one who would teach the rules of the game, and you would read out the rules aloud to the group, and you can just see their faces, kind of their eyes glazing over as you read these complicated rules. It's a horrible experience. So if video helps with that, then I'm all for it.
How do you see your next few years?
Well, busy, busy. One of the things I have realized, and anyone who's starting out on their own publisher or their own game design should realize, that it takes, or if you're not careful, it can take all of your time. Really, there's no end to things to do. I enjoy it. I'm happy to say that our future is developing this Escape the Dark series. We have unlimited work we can do on this, so that's always available. But yeah, so our future is more games in the Escape the Dark series and a new game series. And beyond that, we have, as a team of designers, we have, I think we did a rough count of 10, we think, really good game years. So we could be, and each of those takes a few years to properly develop and release. So we could be here 10, 20 years easily, just with the ideas we have now. But of course, during that time, things change. As you said, technology changes. So I'm sure we'll have some great new ideas in that time as well. But one of the objectives we do have is to take a step into that digital realm, maybe even a digital-only product. Themeborn, our publisher, is not only a tabletop games publisher in our minds. There's no reason we're restricted to that. We could go and produce anything we like. So yeah, it's an exciting future. I can't wait to every day come in and do some more.
Which means we will be talking again sooner or later. probably to talk more about the dark world, probably to talk more about the hopefully new, upcoming, more enlightened world. Thanks a lot, Tom, for taking your time to be with us. It's been a great pleasure. I'm really eager for news from your side. Thanks a lot. So this was Thomas Pike sharing his thoughts about the board gaming world and about his own game, Escape Dark Castle. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. On Monday we have the next video, and also we have only on Facebook the Reflections of a Tabletop Teacher, where I share my thoughts about teaching board games to little kids. So if you like this video, you don't forget thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, or if you are not but you haven't subscribed, don't forget hit that subscribe button to help the channel. I'll be seeing you again soon, so see you at a table next to you.